We only did that fun, happy song for the noon. Just kidding. Our graphics team did an amazing job getting us ready. Well, you told me that if we did a noon gathering, you would show up. So here we are. It's incredible, right? Sleeping in a little bit. Like, Ben, no, I slept till the same time. I just haven't been to church with that 11 o'clock thing you guys had going on. Well, here's what we're doing, just so you know, and I don't need your permission or anything, but we're doing a beauty contest between the three gatherings today, and so I just need to get a snapshot of the noon. I think you guys are going to win. Boom. Boom. All right, I think you guys are going to win. And here's we don't advertise this at the other gatherings, but I want to let you know by noon my filter is kind of gone, and so it is going to be the funnest, tweet-worthiest stuff. All right, you don't want to miss the noon. I'm thrilled that you guys and girls are here, and it's going to be a good time. We are convinced that we never have enough, or is that just me? It just seems that we never have enough, right? We never have enough money. We never have enough time. We never have enough on our resume. You know, if you're still putting your high school things on your resume, you probably don't have enough legit stuff to put on there. But I know you're a who's who. You didn't know your mom paid for that. You didn't earn it. She paid for it. But we never seem to have enough. We never have enough sleep, unless you come to the noon service at church. We tend to just think we never have enough. But not only do we think we never have enough, we're convinced also that we will never be enough. We will never be beautiful enough. We will never be successful enough. Maybe you've even been to a church where they left you feeling like you could never even be spiritual enough. On Tuesday mornings, our moms group started meeting like all of our groups that Lindsay mentioned, and I thought it was ironic when I saw their book on Friday, Are You Mom Enough? I'm working on this. It's a work in progress or regress. There was an article in Time magazine, that's what the book's a response to. There was an article in Time that asked the haunting question, are you mom enough? I don't even know what that means, but in every realm of our lives, we're trying to think about all that we don't have. We are trying to know that there is more out there, whatever the area is, there's more for us to give. But isn't it interesting that in our preoccupation with all that we lack in life, where the only thing that we seem to have in abundance is actually scarcity itself? Isn't that odd? There's such a lack in our lives and in our culture that the only thing we seem to have a lot of is scarcity, which is the fear of not having enough, or I would even say the fear of not being enough. Here's the question we want to tackle in this series that we hope to give you some answers to over the next 6 or 7 weeks. The question is this, simply, will I ever have enough? Will I ever have enough? Will I ever have enough to be fulfilled? Will I ever have enough to be content? Will I ever have enough so that I can quit saying there's still something missing? Will I ever have enough? Some of the big ideas we'll engage in this series are the following. We will talk about what does it look like when your success is never enough? Or what does it look like when your wealth is never enough? Or what about when your abilities are never enough? And even when you, as a person, like the core of who you are, what do you do when you aren't enough? We'll also look at what to do when this world isn't enough. Like when life on earth, there's nothing in all of the planet that offers us enough to finally be fully satisfied and content on a 24-hour, 7-day-a-week basis. Next week, a little bit provocative, but we'll talk about what does it mean when God is never enough. Like, that's a play on words, Pastor. What's going on? I mean, come on. But today, here's our topic. What do you do when everything is never enough? When you get everything and it just doesn't do it for you. One of the things I want to introduce just as a concept for today that I will talk about and refer to often is this idea of an enough line in your life. So in every realm of our lives, whatever the area is, relationships, money, your industry, vacations, it can be anything, but in every area of our lives, we have what I'm calling today an enough line. And here's how you know what the definition of that is. Whatever you're telling yourself, if I get to that point, it's enough, that's your enough line. And I think there are 3 ways, as I think about it, that we can live in relationship to that enough line. Here's the first one. The first way you can live in relationship to your enough line is that you haven't got there yet, so it's still somewhere out in front of you. Does that make sense? So you have some hope, you're working hard because you know, at least in your mind, if you get there, then everything else will be settled. And so your enough line is somewhere still in front of you, but you're hopeful because you know if you can get there, everything else in your world will be taken care of. So it's still in front of you. Second way we can live in a relationship to our enough line is that we get to the line and we realize that we've grossly underestimated where the line should have been. And I think that's where most of us are, right? Because we all, for the most part, unless you just have crazy dreams, I'm sure we have some wild imaginations among us, but if you have an enough line, you say, if I could just get that degree, right? When you were growing up, if I could just get a driver's license, right? If I could just get my braces off. But we have this enough line, and then we get to it, and we're like, I have grossly underestimated where the enough line should have been, right? And typically this happens about the time you move from anywhere else on the planet to San Francisco, right? Do you remember, if you can remember back to either coming out of high school or university or even the military, do you remember what you told yourself the number that you needed to make to be good to go? And then you moved to San Francisco? Anybody? Or even if you didn't move to San Francisco, even if you're already here, think about if you can remember someone in an interview asked you, hey, well, maybe they asked you like, well, hey, what are you going to need to make? Well, the alternative is I'm making nothing right now and I have some student loans. So whatever you want to pay me, but think about what that number was and what it is today. It's kind of like we moved to San Francisco. They're like, hey, you remember that number I gave you? That wasn't my annual number. That's my monthly number. I need a little bit more to have enough. And so first of all, our enough line is in front of us. Secondly, we get to it only to realize we have grossly underestimated where it should have been. Or third, this one actually leads to some depression for a lot of us. We get to the enough line that we knew would do it for us. It doesn't do it for us, and now we're all out of ideas about what could. So 3 ways to live in relationship to that enough line, that it's still in front of me, so I'll get there one day, or you get to it, and then you need to push it out further because you realize you underestimated it, or you get there, you've tried everything, this isn't doing it, and despair begins to set in because you don't have any more ideas about what you could pursue to find enough. Today, I want to launch this series with a guy who did an experiment that is merely hypothetical for most of us, if not all of us. His experiment was simply this. He wanted to see where exactly is the enough line located in the world. In his experience, he wanted to put this test together and go, hey, I'm going to do all of these things so that I can walk away and go, hey, the enough line is here. Anyone interested where he found that line to be? Anybody? If not, we can go home now and, catch the end of the Niners game, I'm sure, or whoever your team is. But he has the resources to make his reality in the experiment what is only hypothetical for the rest of us. He actually had at his disposal to go and do all of the things he wanted to do to see where that line is. It's merely hypothetical for most of us. Before we get into his story, I just want to ask you this question. Whatever realm of life you want to think about, it could be relationships, it could be square footage of your home, it could be position in your company, it could be significance in your industry, whatever. Here's the question. Where exactly is your enough line? And we all have one, so there's not like, hey, you're not going to share it with the group, but there's no, like, let's just be honest and go, hey, I've told myself if my kids will just, or if my boss will just, or if my bank account would just, or if I could just get to this vacation, right? We all have something like this. So you can imagine probably a vacation destination that would be enough, or maybe a magic salary number that would be enough, or a certain size waist that would be enough, or if you're a mom or dad, maybe you can imagine the age of your parents that if they would just, or the age of your kids, if they would just stay there, that would be enough. And by the way, grass is always greener, so those of us with older children, we wish they were a different age that was younger, not really, guys. And those of you with younger children, you're like, if my kids could just change themselves, right? If my kids could just dress themselves, if they would just get to school, there's always something we're doing in any realm of our lives, and we're saying, if that would happen, then I will be good to go. So the guy who does this experiment, his name is Solomon, and perhaps you've heard of him. He's a son of David and Bathsheba. He's known as the wisest man who ever lived. And in Ecclesiastes chapter 2, if you have a Bible, we're going to look at his adventure. If you need a Bible, just raise your hand. We will get one to you. Ecclesiastes chapter 2, the page number will be on the screen. Maybe you have it on your phone, or you've got it memorized, whatever the case may be. Ecclesiastes chapter 2, Solomon has the resources to do in his reality what is merely hypothetical for most of us. And if you'll stand with me, let's look at Ecclesiastes chapter 2. Anybody go out to brunch before the noon gathering today? Anybody? No, bro, we just slept in. Or some of you are like, man, I didn't know it was Oracle week. I tried to get here for the 9 o'clock, and I just got here. Whatever the case, so thrilled. It's such a great crowd. Ecclesiastes 2, 1 through 11. Solomon's words, I said in my heart, come now, I will test you with pleasure. Enjoy yourself. But behold, this also was vanity. I said of laughter, it is mad, and of pleasure, what use is it? I searched my heart, how to cheer my body with wine, my heart still guiding me with wisdom, and how to lay hold on folly, till I might see what was good for the children of man to do under heaven during the few days of their life. I made great works. I built houses and planted vineyards for myself. I made myself gardens and parks and planted, he did not live in San Francisco, and planted in them all kinds of fruit, unless he owned Golden Gate Park, he did not live here. Planted in them all kinds of fruit trees. I made myself pools from which to water the forest of growing trees. I bought male and female slaves and had slaves who were born in my house. I had also great possessions of herds and flocks, more than any who had been before me in Jerusalem. I also gathered for myself silver and gold and the treasure of kings and provinces. I got singers, both men and women, and many concubines, the delight of the sons of man. So I became great and surpassed all who were before me in Jerusalem. Also, my wisdom remained with me. And whatever my eyes desired, I did not keep from them. I kept my heart from no pleasure, for my heart found pleasure in all my toil. And this was my reward for all my toil. Verse 11, then I considered all that my hands had done and the toil I had expended in doing it, and behold, all was vanity and a striving after wind, and there was nothing to be gained under the sun. So to summarize, your life is pointless. Have a seat. It's like chasing after the wind. Who's encouraged? Should have kept sleeping. So Solomon sets out to do this test, an experiment, if you like. And the experiment is really simple, at least in his mind. It's this: find out where the enough line is actually located. He had some theories, just like every one of us have this morning. We all have some theories. We all have some ideas about where the enough line would be. And he said this: I want to find out where it's actually located. And he gives us a summary right from the beginning when he says everything ended up being vanity. Now, Solomon is giving us what originally was the Hebrew language. So the Old Testament's written in Hebrew, and this word for vanity, it literally means like mere breath or vapor. The idea he's conveying is that it was momentary in nature. It was fleeting. It was actually elusive. It was like a vapor. It was here in one moment, evaporating the next moment. That's what he's saying the search was like. And then he walks us through the things that he tried to find to be his enough. And then he lets us know that he keeps the quest going because he can't find what will do it. Verse 3, he says that he sought to cheer his body with wine. Now, for those of you looking for a new phrase for anything you have going on in life that you shouldn't, there you go. No, Mom, I don't have a problem. I'm just cheering my body with wine. Easy, easy. It says, which is I think is really great, it says that he kept his wisdom with him, okay? So he wasn't cheering as much as you thought he was cheering his body with wine. Like, wisdom stayed with him. He's just saying, like, it wasn't so much that it went out of control and I could no longer think. And so it's super interesting. Anyway, different day. In verse 4, he says he made great works. He built houses and planted vineyards for himself. Solomon was known as an amazing builder. In other parts in the Old Testament, you will see some things that he built, but what he especially built, two things: his personal home. It took him 13 years to build his home. His home was 150 feet wide. It was 45 feet high, and again, it took him 13 years to build it. He also was the one responsible for building the dwelling place for God himself, the temple. If you remember part of David's story, David was Solomon's father, and God told David, hey, you're not going to build the temple. It's actually Solomon's going to build the temple. And so he builds himself a personal paradise. He builds the dwelling structure for God to exist in with his presence, and that still isn't enough for him, so he moves on. Verse 5 and 6. I made myself gardens and parks, planted in them all kinds of fruit trees. I made myself pools from which to water the forest of growing trees. Like, we know he's not in San Francisco because we think it would be enough just to have one little fruit tree on the balcony, right? We would love to have a yard as big as the square I'm standing in now. Like, that would be incredible. And he's having forests, parks, and gardens, plural. But it wasn't enough, so he keeps going. Verse 7, it says that he bought slaves, male and female slaves. There were slaves that were born in his home. He then goes on in verse 7 to say that he had more herds and flocks than anyone else. Now, a moment ago, when I asked you, where is your enough line, I assumed there weren't a number of herds or flocks that came to all of you city people. Anybody? Herds and flocks? No? But look at what it says. It says that he amassed more than anyone else. Do you know that for some of us, sometimes our enough line is just one more than everyone else around us? You know? Like, I don't care if I make 100 on the test, but if 90 is the highest anybody else made, I'm making a 91. There's a college football coach, a prominent college football coach, and in his contract, it says that he must make X amount of dollars or $1 more than the second highest paid coach in the country. Now, I'm thinking to myself, that's awesome if only one person in the country has that in their contract, but what if two have it? How does that go? You know what I mean? Like they can't both have, if two people have that in their contract. But anyway, sometimes when it comes to our enough, we just want more than everyone else around us. We want to have more. We want to have bigger. We want to have more significance, more accomplishments, more success. And you're like, Ben, how do you know that? Because oftentimes we aren't comparing ourselves to the best. We just want to compare ourselves to everyone else. And he's like, I had more than everyone else. Then he gets into verse 8 and he just keeps it going. But he continues to move on. In verse 8, I gathered for myself silver and gold, the treasure of kings and provinces. So his wealth is just astounding. I was at dinner last night with a friend who's been studying Solomon's life for other reasons, and he said that what he read, the equivalent of Solomon's net worth in today's dollars would be over $2 trillion. With a TR, trillion. $2 trillion. He's taking treasure from kings and provinces, like entire regions, and he's still saying that's not enough, so he moves on. Then in verse 8, it says that he got singers. You didn't read that wrong. It's not a bad translation. He got singers. Now, we are just trying to get a seat in the nosebleed in the arena for the concert, right? Right? What's the best concert you've seen lately that you can talk about in church? I mean, Adele was here recently. Anybody? Okay, hold it high. So all right, with Adele, we're just trying to get in the arena to see Adele. He's buying her. Like anytime he want to just hear hello, you know, like she. I didn't give that to 9 or 10:30. I'm just saying, bonus. He's not going into the concert. He's buying male and female singers and telling them when to sing to him. No alarm clock for Solomon. He just picks the song before he goes to bed, but it's not on his Pandora or his iTunes list. It's she or he or there, singing him songs. And then he said that he had many concubines, the delight of the sons of men. And so you can imagine what he's getting into there, this whole kind of sexual conquest, pleasure. Solomon, when you count and combine his wives and concubines, there were 1,000 women accessible to him. This is where I'm trying to figure out who's thinking what in the room. Some of you guys are like, man, I can't keep one woman happy. I do not know what the wisest man in the world was doing with 1,000 women. Even with that, he was trying to find what would be enough, what kind of body type, what frequency, how many partners. But he doesn't even in that moment find enough, so he keeps moving on. Verse 9, it says that he became greater and more significant than anyone else who had come before him in Jerusalem. Now, whether you've been to church much at all or not in your life, even if you know just a little bit, were there some significant people who came before Solomon in Jewish history? Moses, Noah, Abraham, Isaac, Jacob. I mean, Joseph, we can just go on. And he is saying with that knowledge, his dad is David, okay? Just so you're like, maybe he wasn't aware of all those people. He's including King David. And he's like, I was greater and I was more significant. See, for some of us, it's not stuff that we want to acquire that's our enough. We just want the world to know we are as significant as anyone else on the planet. But he says that still wasn't enough. And then he gives us this cumulative search. Some of you are thinking, you're so creative, you're thinking, Ben, I can think of a dozen things he left out. So he wants to encapsulate everything in verse 10. Look at what he says. I kept myself from no pleasure. Whatever my eyes desired, essentially he's saying, my hands grabbed. Whatever I wanted, whatever idea came into my mind, I actually attained the fruition of that idea. So he's just encapsulating everything. Look at verse 10. He said, whatever my eyes desired, I did not keep from them. So there are no restrictions. There are no boundaries. There's nowhere where Solomon's going, oh, I probably shouldn't. Okay, I won't. There's no place that he's doing that. When he thinks it, he pursues it because he's an intelligent man doing an experiment, trying to find out where his enough line was located. And so there were no restrictions, no barriers. This man went for it. Let me ask you this question. What if in this very moment, you could have every single thing you desire? Like, just think about it. I'm going to try to read minds. What would you get if you could have everything you wanted right now? What would be in your bank account? Who would you be dating or married to? Where would you be living? What would you be known for? What would your position in the company be? Like, Ben, I would be retired if I could have everything I wanted. But just to think about that, and to think, like Solomon, again, it's hypothetical for us. It was reality for him. He's like, whatever I wanted, I had. I got it all. Everything that I thought would do it for me, I went for it, only it didn't. What's amazing to me is that at the end of his journey, a lot has changed. He's acquired a lot. He's experienced a lot. And yet he's basically in the exact same place where he started, isn't he? I mean, he got everything except for the one thing he set out to get. You see that? If I said, what was Solomon lacking on paper, you would go, nothing. So on the one hand, he got everything he wanted to get. On the other hand, he's still finding to be elusive the thing he sought out in the first place. He never found any of it to be enough. And some of us are like, give me a chance. I can imagine some of those places where I would finally be content. But what he would say to us is no. Now, here's the problem, to be honest. Solomon had the resources to complete the experiment. We could try the experiment, most of us at least, for the rest of our lives, and we will die having not completed what he completed. Does that make sense? So you could have this journey well into your 60s, 70s, or 80s if you live on earth that long and still not be able to get to the conclusion of your own personal experiment. One of the things that's in Scripture is not just that we would know God's ways, but we would also know how people tried to approach life and be able to learn from them, even from thousands of years ago. And what this story is in here so that we might go, wow, he got everything and he didn't get it. Am I kidding myself to think that if I get this or get that or have this over there, that I will finally get the thing that I've longed for? Solomon's going, you won't do it. You won't do it. And then he gives us an equation in verse 11 that I think is interesting. He said, out of all the things that I did, I considered all that my hands had made, and in the end, he says, I realized there was nothing gained. It's a little bit depressing, isn't it? Now, what he's not saying and what we are not saying in the series is this, that it's wrong for us to enjoy great things. No, God is a God who sends blessing into our lives. I hope the stock IPOs, if that's what needs to happen for you. I hope you buy the home, get the relationship. I hope that you get to find a yard in San Francisco or get like a membership to some outdoor place. I hope all of those things happen. That's not what he's saying. He's just saying that none of those things, if those things are what you ultimately look to for your satisfaction, none of those things are going to do it for you. So he said, I gained everything on the one hand, but on the other hand, I gained absolutely nothing. Because he's in search of what would be enough, what would finally do it for him. Now, some of us moved to San Francisco in search of enough. We were told that real entrepreneurs come here. Yes? Otherwise, you would be paying $700 a month to live in Kansas City. Sorry for any of our podcast listeners in Kansas City. Right? You knew that if you could make it here, you could make it. I forget the noon crowd might not be the most ambitious crowd in San Francisco, but nonetheless. And some of you left where you were living before because you were just utterly bored with the place. Like it wasn't compelling anymore. And so you moved here. But here's the thing about that is now you have to have some initiative that is always compelling and that never loses its luster. And I'm not hating here, but this is why some of us have had more jobs in this city than years that we've lived here. I'm not saying you should have jumped, but if you've jumped in the hopes that it would finally become the thing. Just think about this. If you've told yourself that with every job and you're 12 different jobs in, maybe there's not a job that's going to do it for you. Have an amazing job. I mean, to be honest, even for me, this enough thing is true. We felt like God was calling us to start this church in San Francisco, and long before I had done probably adequate research, okay? So I'm not saying this is what you all should do. The more research we began to do, we began to talk to people out here, and one person told us, and we heard it a couple times, said that for the last 35 years prior to the time we were in 8 years ago or so, they said, hey, just so you know, for the last 35 years, San Francisco has become a graveyard for church starts. They're essentially saying that very few churches that have been started in the last 3.5 decades actually are still around and have made it to any degree. And so do you know where my enough line was then? We just need to make it. We need to have that one service, open the doors, and who cares what else happens? And you know I still don't care, right? No. I pushed the enough line out, right? Now we got to be sustainable, right? Now we got to find a building. And those things are good, but they can't, even for me, even in the church world, even with the job that I have, I can't go, if we have X amount of people show up and we do this kind of missional impact around the world, then I will be satisfied and it won't matter what else happens in my life. On Epic's best days, on my best days, not enough. It was never meant to be enough. I think we all know deep down what Solomon's telling us, even if we don't care to admit it. Here's what we all know deep down. Our enough isn't out there somewhere. Now, I mean really deep down, because some of us have tricked ourselves. Your enough isn't external somewhere. It's not out there. It's not waiting to be found by you. It's just not. There's not a magic salary number. Now imagine that God gave us everything that we wanted, but withheld himself from us. Now, we know this would be the wrong answer in church, but most of us would be like, I'm cool with that. God, if you exist, I don't need your personal presence in my life. Just give me what I have to have enough, and then we can, I'll see you like after this life is over. But how cruel would it be if God allowed us to be content, satisfied, fulfilled with all of these things we think would do it for us, and yet we missed out on the God who made us and was what our hearts actually longed for? It would be cruel. Why? Because you were made for God. You were made by God. You were made to know God. You were made to find your fulfillment in him. Jesus was constantly in his life and ministry inviting people into an experiment just like Solomon. Jesus knows that we're all on this experiment. Not just Solomon, not just me, but all of you. All human beings are in this experiment. And what are we trying to find? We're trying to find what will be enough. Here's what Jesus said in John 7, verse 37 and 38. It will be on the screen, and you might hear it a lot in this series. Jesus said, okay, you're in this experiment, but he gives you a different solution for how to get the experiment accomplished. On the last day of the feast, the great day, Jesus stood up and cried out, "If anyone thirsts, let him come to me and drink. Whoever believes in me, as the scripture has said, out of his heart will flow rivers of living water." What is Jesus saying? He's saying, I know that you lack something. I know that you're still on this quest to find enough. But he's also exposing that we have a faulty search. We've been looking to everything out there, externally, and he's going, hey, it's not out there. If anyone thirsts, if anyone lacks something, if anyone's missing something, if anyone's still longing and they don't know how to satisfy that longing, come to me and drink. But what do we say? No, I want to go into this promotion and drink. I want to have that person be interested in me and drink from that experience. And those things that can be good. As we talk more in this series, there are really two things that I'm trying to drive at in this series. One is that there are certain things that need to be absolutely removed from our lives. But number two, most things probably can stay in our lives. We just can't look to them to be our everything. Does that make sense? I want you to have a good marriage. It just can't be everything. I want you to have an amazing job. It just can't be everything. I want you to have the kind of home and plants and whatever you want, but it just can't be everything for you. And Jesus says, hey, here's the good news. It's not out there somewhere. It can come from within you, but you have to come and you have to drink from the living water that he's offering. So you could have two responses, I think, to that news that we've heard from Solomon and even this shortly from Jesus. Number one, you could be really upset to know you're never going to find it out there. You could really be ticked off and just go, wait a minute, I'm doing all this for nothing? Or number two, you could be grateful that you don't have to go find it out there. And think about it like this. If God made us, then he would know what's best for us. And Jesus isn't being arrogant when he says, you've got to come here if you really want to fulfill the experiment. He's not being arrogant. He's just going, hey, I know what it is. The God who created us, I think, with an emptiness is able to fill that emptiness. So you have one of two choices. You can keep searching out there somewhere, or you can take Jesus to task, not arrogantly, not commanding him, but you can take him to task because why? He's invited you in. He's like, come, drink, engage. And what I will produce in you will be fulfilling in a way that you can't experience even if you get all of that out there. For Solomon, 2 trillion wasn't enough. 1,000 women, not enough. Amazing builder, not enough. Wealth from kings and provinces, not enough. Owning singers and slaves, not enough. Do you really think you're going to find it out there? Let's encourage one another to go, no. It's not out there somewhere. Go and have an amazing life, but it's got to come from within. And Jesus offers to fill that space that's lacking. Would you pray with me? Again, we've been reading and talking a lot about Solomon's experiment because of what it exposes in him and what it exposes in us. But we finished by talking about the reality that Jesus offers us into an experiment as well. He invites us to come and to taste, to see that he's good, to see that he's faithful. And if for the first time in your life, you would be at a place this afternoon, where you would say, I want to take the experiment that Jesus just mentioned. I don't even know what that means, but I want to take it. We would love to help you process that. If you, with all of our eyes closed, would you just raise your hand and say, hey, I would love to begin that experiment of what it would look like to follow Jesus? Thank you. Yeah, just keep those hands up. And then let us know. You can email me, ben@epicsf.com, or you can come see one of our staff members. We'd love to say, okay, what does it look like to come and to drink the invitation that he's offering? For the rest of us, wherever you are on your spiritual journey, and if you're a Christian, it could just be that you've forgotten. And you've been pulled into this trap that it's going to be out there somewhere. And now today we're just telling you, no, it's not out there, but it can come from within you. I'm going to pray for you that God would give each of us the kind of wisdom that Solomon ended up learning perhaps the hard way. And that we would take Jesus up at his invitation to come and drink, to have those rivers of living water flowing from within us so we don't have to keep searching for the externals. God, I thank you for what we've learned from Solomon's life. I thank you that we don't have to be upset that we're never going to find it out there. We can be so grateful, Jesus, that you've made us an offer that's better. An offer that's better than our company stock going public. An offer that's better than finding the woman or man of our dreams, as great as that would be. An offer that's better than buying our first home. God, an offer that's better than success or wealth or pleasure. So Jesus, what that means is that we're not dependent upon the externals. It doesn't have to be a thing or a certain salary or a promotion or a new home or some experience in an exotic island. So it's available for the rich and the poor, for the successful and those who feel like failures, for the young and for the old. Jesus, today we want to receive what it is that you've offered us. Life, a river of living water, always fresh, doing for us what we could never find somewhere else. God, I pray that this reality would bear fruit in our lives. Even in this moment, I want to pray for the people who said, I want to start that experiment of following Jesus. God, I pray that you would give them the know-how. You would help us, help them. God, we're looking forward to what you want to do in this season, and I pray we could encourage each other towards what really will be enough. Thank you for being enough, and in you, Jesus, we lack no good thing. In your name I pray. Amen. I want to ask you just to stand as we get ready to respond as the band leads us. Just be thinking about what is that thing that you're in a quest to find. And what if Jesus is the fulfillment of the quest you're on?